Hello, this is Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and I've been dropping a small pop can glider from my Mavic 2 Zoom, and you can hardly see it. So I decided, well, I'll see if I can design a glider that's bigger and uses more pop cans. So here we go. This is what you have to do is you have to. Well, I bought a case of 12 pop cans of root beer, but anyway, have to have some kind of a sharp knife, and you can cut aluminum with a good sharp knife, no problem. And I start with the bottom because it's thicker, and then the top part is easier to cut. So you have to do that probably 5 times, and you find a straight line to cut along, like that, and then you trim off all the sharp stuff that's going to cut your finger, because otherwise you get injured while you're trying to do this. All right, so I'm scooting back, and I'm going to pull that over the edge of the table and get the warp out of it, so I have a flat piece of aluminum to build with. If you watch all the way through this video, I'm proud of you. Okay, so now now you have to do that 5 times. Now this here is a practice that I'm going to use later, and you need to do a practice one of whatever width your wing is going to be. And I like a nice narrow wing because it doesn't weight down the plane so much. So this is how I'm going to go about it. First of all, I started a wing, and then I thought I better videotape this. So that was the first beginning, and now I'm going to start from scratch. Now your wings have to be opposite each other. Okay, you have to have one one that's the opposite, and you'll see what I'm talking about as we go along. Now, it's about 3 inches across a strip of aluminum, and it's not critical. I want my wing to be maybe 1.25 inches or something. So we're just making sure everything is nice, and there we go. Now we're going to put our mark there, and we're going to make it, looks like we're going to make it 2.5 inches. So, and make all your marks on the painted side, because the shiny side is what you want to have out, and you want it to look pretty. Okay, so now I just have to find the halfway point. I'll lay my steel ruler down, and I'll start bending the aluminum, and you bend it about or more than 90 degrees. Bend it back quite a ways. Okay. Now this is an old file for sharpening chainsaw blades that I used to heat my house with wood, and so I filed a lot of chainsaw blades. And anything that's about 1/4 inch. Now I'm doing this so that you can see it should be about 1/4 inch. You probably, well, maybe there's somebody still around that has chainsaw blade sharpeners, but just any piece of steel, you don't want it to bend, so find something that's about 1/4 inch. If it's not exactly 1/4, that's okay. Get it straight there. Okay, that's better. Anyway, you can see it's just about 1/4 inch. So any steel rod that you can find that about 1/4 inch, you're in good shape. Now what I'm doing is I'm sharpening the front edge with just by squeezing it with my fingers, because you want that to be a fairly sharp front edge to the wing. And so we just shove the steel rod down in there towards the front, and this is an art. This is a work of art, because you have to just keep working and keep working until you got it to where you want it. You want the top of the wing to have a rise, and you want the bottom of the wing to be flat. You can see there I'm flattening out the bottom, and there now I've got to go back and make the top round again. And you know, it doesn't have to be perfectly flat. It's not a commercial airplane. And and if you screw up, you notice I put a little taper there at the end, kind of like a Cessna wing. Okay, and trim it a little bit there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim some off of the top. Trim some off of the bottom, and then I'm going to take the top piece and I'm going to fold it over the back edge of the bottom and make the back of the wing come together so it holds its shape. And there you can see I've got 1/8 of an inch or so of aluminum coming on the top side of the wing. Now I'm going to take my long nose pliers. You can use anything you want, pliers of any kind, but get a sharp edge started so that you can fold it over and pinch the trailing edge of the wing, pinch it together so that you've got a good solid wing. And you want that, you'll see when I get through here, you want that pinched down really tight against the bottom of the wing so it doesn't drag as the air comes by the bottom of the wing. You don't want any drag. So you fold it over. And see, it's kind of like an art project. And you work it and work it and work it. Now I put this together, this video, I put it together, it probably took me 3 or 4 hours, but I was making a video. You could probably make one of these in maybe 2 or 3 hours. Drinking the root beer is the fun part. Okay, so now you can see it's kind of the shape of a wing, and the back edge is all pinched down tight, so it won't drag any more than necessary. And now I'm not satisfied, so I'm going to do some more rounding and get that wing exactly the way I want it. It's got to be rounded on the top at the front and flat on the bottom to get the most lift. Now you see I'm getting rid of the roundness on the bottom with just running my finger along there. And get that pinched down tight. And I think, alright, so that's going to be the right side wing right there. And the left side wing is going to have to be just the opposite. In other words, the taper is going to be at the other end of the wing. So I won't show you making both wings because you get the idea. And measurements can be just about whatever you want. Doesn't have to be exactly what I'm showing here on the screen. Okay, now that practice piece that I made at the beginning, alright, see I'm sliding, I've got both wings made, and I'm sliding the wings, as long as they're about the same size, you can slide these two, the right and left wing, into that practice piece, and that's going to hold the two of them together when you put it on the airplane. Okay, now what am I going to do? I've got my wing, and I need a fuselage. Now I made this earlier because I wasn't sure if it would work, but I figured out a way to make a fuselage. So that's what I made. Now I'm going to show you how to make one. And remember, you make all your marks and everything on the paint. Otherwise you'll mess up your nice finished shiny wing. So there I'm folding it over, and I'm making it a little bit crooked because we want the back of the fuselage to be smaller. Now I'm folding over. Now this is overkill, and I'll pay the price pretty soon because I'm really folding it tight. And you fold it over so you have at least 4, and actually you need 5 layers to get the 4 sides. Okay. Now we got that off. Now here's the hard part because I folded it too much. If you don't flatten it out with the edge of the ruler, maybe flatten it a little bit, but you want the fuselage has to fold in on itself in order to stay together. And we're going to end up taping it when we get through, but as you can see, I got it way too hard to work with because I folded it so hard. Now I think I pretty much got it there. Still getting the warp out of it. Another art project. Alright, so we've got the fuselage done. Now this tape that I'm going to use is what they use nowadays in heating and air conditioning on the ducts, because it's much better than the original duct tape. The original duct tape, it would get rotten and start coming apart as it aged. This is plastic. It looks like metal, and it's shiny. I don't know, there might be some metal in it, but it's very, very sticky tape, and it works excellent to hold things together, besides duct work. And I got it at Walmart years ago, and as you can see, all the little projects I do, I use it for a lot of stuff. I still have the roll. It's running out though. I made my grandson a tank, and I made a Jeep out of a pop can, and used that kind of tape to hold everything together. I didn't paint the tank, but I painted the Jeep. I painted it khaki color, so it looks like an army Jeep. And what I'm doing here is I'm taping the fuselage together so it stays in one piece, and I start at the middle and then I work out, because otherwise we'll get it warped. If you start at one end, you're likely to get a warp. Okay? And you'll notice that I don't put any on the back, because once I get these two pieces of tape on, I recognized that it's going to hold together, and the more weight you put on the back, the worse it's going to fly when you try to fly it. You want to keep the back as light as possible. So there, I think I've got it done. Now what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to make the horizontal and vertical stabilizer. And if you're not familiar with those are, that's the tail stuff. Like the tail that sticks up and the wings that stick out back there. I'm going to make those. So I'm using up another pop can. And I don't need the whole thing, but as you can see, I'm just using the width of the ruler. And I made a mistake. If you've been listening, I put my marks on the wrong side. But fortunately, they're on the edge, so they don't show up too much. Now this is all guesswork, okay? I'm just saying, well, about an inch here, maybe 2 inches there. And, that's the tail. This is a twin tail, by the way. That's why I call it a bomber. Pop can bomber. And you can see I measured wrong here. By the time I get through, I've got I got one of the vertical stabilizers longer than it should be. Okay, now we just have to stick it on the back of the fuselage. Some more air conditioning tape. And that's all it takes to hold that on. Okay. Now, what is that for? Well, we're going to put the wing on that we just put together. We want it to be as square as possible with the fuselage, because the wing is going to be the part of the plane that flies, and if it's not square with the fuselage, then the fuselage flies crooked, and that creates drag, and so you want it to be as square as possible. And what I just did there was I found the center, of course. And the length of the wing is kind of determined by how you put it together. I hope somebody will try this. Now you'll notice here that I'm not thinking, because I'm putting the wing up at the very front. And it looks like an airplane, but it will never fly. So later here in the video, you're going to see where I've moved it back to keep the center of gravity more towards the center of the fuselage. But at this point, I'm not thinking about that. So at this here, yeah, because I had two Cessnas, and I like Cessnas and how they're built and stuff. And so this is the wing struts that I'm putting together here. So it'll look like my old 170. Kind of. Find a halfway point, which I didn't. I got it wrong. Try again. By the way, I can't remember if I mentioned, but I've been shaky-handed for years. I don't know if it's been all my life, but as I get older, my hands shake a lot more. And another thing I can do about it, except drink coffee carefully. Okay, now I've got to admit, it looks like an airplane, but that wing is way too far forward. So looks like it's going to work, except I've got to move the wing back. But at this point, I'm real happy with it, and I'm showing it off. Okay, now you need some weight in the front, and so I'm measuring that diameter of that piece of it's actually called CPVC, and you can get it at a hardware store. But anything that's about a half an inch in diameter, you lay it out. And now this is my wife bought 5 cans or 12 cans of squirt because that's her favorite. So she just finished a can of squirt, and I needed an extra piece of aluminum. So I'm rolling it up, and you just twist it against itself, and keep rolling it around in your hand, and twist it against itself, and twist it against itself. And it's, like I said, it's an art project, and you work on it until you get it to where it needs to be. So it should fit into the front of the plane now. Okay, and that's going to be how we adjust the center of gravity. Okay. Now you can see that it needs a lot more weight in the front because the wing is too far forward. So I'll have to move the wing. I'm taking it all apart. That's part of foolishness in design. It's not hard though. I just slid it back. Moved it back a little further. Keep it nice and square and tape it down. And we'll see if we got a center of gravity here. Well, it's close. It's going to take a little more work. Put a piece of tape around our circular piece up front to keep it together. And then I can slide it in and out to adjust the center of gravity. And so that's the next thing I do, because now, as you can see, it's still not quite right. But at this point, I change it and set it up and set it up, and in the process of trying it outside, I crashed into some rocks, and that put a little dent in the left wing. Hopefully that's still going to be strong. And then I had to also do the horizontal stabilizers. I had to bring them up like the control would be. And here I go. I'm flying it. My wife is videotaping. And it seems to be working. Slow motion. Oh, by the way, if you notice, the tree in the backyard was waving in the wind, and we had wind coming over the fence, and so it was swirling around, and it took me a long time to get that to where it was it would fly. Many, many tries. So I want to thank you for watching, and God bless.